Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from the US is Nimi Bello. Hey, Nimi, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So Nimi is a seasoned Agile professional with a very diverse skill set. She currently serves as a release train engineer at Deloitte with over 8 years of experience. Nimi is an award-winning creative director, a principal Agile consultant, and strategic partner. Her expertise lies in sales, technology, and guiding teams through the complex journey of transitioning to the Agile methodologies. Nimi is a global change agent with a fervor for building and scaling businesses and communities. So, Nimi, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Oh man, so I'm actually celebrating my 8-year anniversary. I got that email reminder from Scrum Alliance earlier this week, and I was like, oh, how timely. I'm getting ready to be on this podcast today. So just reflecting on the last 8 years, transitioning out from sales is where I was at the journey started. It was more of a what next? You know, I did sales and it was great. And I mistakenly found out about Scrum and Agile. And then when I found out about it, an opportunity came for me to get the certification. And I think I realized my passion for just facilitation and just servant leadership. I think that's what really sold me, was just the idea behind servant leadership and empowering teams. And I was like, you know what? I think this is a great fit for me. And the rest is history, like they said, and just really focusing on just the skill set of a Scrum Master. I feel like it's very, very diverse. And as you're reading my bio, I was like, wow, who is that? Is that me? I've done a lot of different stuff. So it's been an interesting journey, to say the least.
And of course, as servant leaders, Scrum Masters benefit from having a lot of varied, diverse background, because we never know what we will be facing once we start working with the teams that we work. And because today is, of course, Monday here on the podcast, we talk about the Fail Monday. And the reason why we talk about that, of course, is because we want to learn and we want to benefit from your experience, Nimi. So take a moment, tell us your story of a difficult moment you faced as a Scrum Master. We'll dive into the details and the takeaways later, but tell us that story first, Nimi.
So I'll actually reverse engineer that question. I don't think it's a moment of failure. I think it's a moment of continuous improvement. You know, I think that I can definitely talk about just being behind schedule, right? When you're committed to something. And I remember this was like my first big Agile implementation project. And I was a lead Scrum Master. And on this project, we were so behind something that was really critical. Budget was impacted, name it, resources were impacted. And I just remember that the team's morale was very low. Team's morale was very low and tensions were high. And also a lot of layoffs were also happening during this time too. So lots of empathy had to be given, but also business wanted us to deliver. And it put me in a really, really tight situation because overall, I wanted us to foster, obviously, a culture of trust was essential, but there was a lot of disconnect, lots of back and forth, lots of things that were out of my control, basically, as the Scrum Master during that period. So I think just kind of going back into my toolbox and just saying, hey, let's start off small. Let's get back into doing daily stand-ups consistently. Let's just kind of communicate with each other. Let's see how we can improve our transparency.
So tell me a little bit more. So you were facing that pressure, right? Like layoffs, the delayed project, the team under pressure with low morale, but you were still being pressured to deliver. I mean, you and the team were being still pressured to deliver. And when you think about it, like what got you this idea to experiment, as you said, going back to basics and starting to do the basic things regularly? Like what triggered that thought?
I think it's just from experience. I think I got into fight or flight mode. And I think for me, my mindset is always what's the solution? Let's think about solution. Let's not worry about the problems per se, because the problems are there, but let's think about what are some of the positive things that we can do. And I think for me, just going back into relationship building, I mentioned earlier that I was in sales. So I got back into what I'm comfortable doing, which is building relationships with people and just start having conversations. Like I mentioned, transparency. So I scheduled one-on-ones with folks to just kind of make sure from an emotional perspective, how are you feeling during this time? Because again, like I said, there was layoffs happening, things were out of my control. But what I could control was ensuring that my team was protected. And I think when I took that notion and just kind of saying, hey, you can trust me, you may not be able to trust everybody else, I think it kind of changed the trajectory of what we were doing. Even though the deliverables were not met at the specific time, I think it was just a lesson learned for me that in situations like this is the reason why I believe Scrum Masters are really valuable, because we're thinking about the things that nobody else is thinking about, the empathy aspect, the servant leadership. How's my team putting my team's needs before the organizational needs? So I think just kind of also having an advocacy mindset too for my team and just kind of saying, hey, my team is low on morale right now because of XYZ. So having those hard conversations and kind of just keeping that mindset of protecting them and prioritizing their needs before organizational standards, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you put it. I need to prioritize my team, right? I need to focus on their well-being, because at the end of the day, whether we want to, whatever the pressures might be, if the team isn't feeling well, it's unlikely that they would perform, right?
Yeah.
So you talked about something that is very important that many Scrum Masters perhaps also need to learn and practice more, which is this aspect you call relationship building. So if you were talking to those Scrum Masters out there who might be, and these days, I mean, it's late 2023, early 2024, there's a lot of layoffs happening, a lot of restructuring happening at this very moment. So I'm sure many Scrum Masters out there are under the gun also to deliver while people are being laid off. What advice do you have for us in how we can effectively build those relationships, rebuild the trust with the team? And no matter what other things are out of our control, at least we feel, a sense of belonging and being protected and heard.
Right, absolutely. I would say that the current situation, I would say since COVID, being able to understand who you're working with, on a personal level is really, really important. Because I feel like the more you take time to even ask, like, hey, how's your wife doing? How are your kids doing? Or I know you talked about your kid had the soccer game last week. It opens up people to build a comfort level with you. It organically builds a trust, because it's like, okay, it's not just, hey, I want you to deliver something on a project. It's more of a community. If you think about it, you become a community, you create that, you foster that culture that I talked about earlier. And what will happen is your team will start to come to you with things. When we talk about the retrospectives, all the things that we do on a daily basis, those things will organically start to happen when you have more of a relationship aspect. I know with Deloitte, we have what we call a business chemistry. Business chemistry is, hey, understanding how does this person communicate? What is their communication style? So I know for me, those are some of the things I've adopted throughout, is just kind of understanding communication styles of people. Some people want you to email them. Some people prefer you to ping them on Slack. Some people don't want to communicate when something is going on. Some people go really silent. That it's literally happened where I've had an engineer go ghost for like a week. Nobody knew what happened to him. He just went ghost for a week. And I just took it upon myself to ping him directly, like, hey, how are you doing? I just want to make sure that you are okay. I know we haven't heard from you, but just want to make sure that you're okay. I think since COVID, prioritizing our mental, especially this working from home, remote situation, sometimes we get so into the weeds of things that we have to understand that we're humans. And this is also a transition period, for us. So I think for me, the relationship building in my sales experience has also been able to be a strong component for me to have relationships between business and products and even tech, my engineering teams. So having that mindset, I think, helps me to have those hard conversations when they become easier, basically, in a nutshell.
Absolutely. And it's really a concern or a topic of concern for us Scrum Masters, right? The mental well-being of the teams that we work with. And of course, building trust is the next step, right? So, and as you said, that a very quick and effective way to build trust is to build relationships. If we really care about the people we work with, then we get that back, right? Then they also care about us. And I think that it's those very basic human needs that you brought with you from your sales background that do need to be emphasized. So thank you for sharing that, Nimi.
Absolutely.
Monday is about what we learned from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.